Hey, what's up? It's your boy Rawk. Crack out your snazziest pair of jeans and replace any form of showering with links, because it's time for a business proposal. Everybody loves a hardy video game, and I think we can all agree that video games are at their best when they're good. So instead of risking making utter dog shit instead of a great new game, why not take a game that's already great and remake it? That way, nobody can bitch at you! How did you fuck that up?
HD remakes are something of a forbidden fruit with video games. A lot of the time they're a lot less effort than brand new games, but they can take something that people love and give it a new coat of paint that make us love it even more, which is why God doesn't want us to have them. You ever notice that full-on HD remakes rarely happen nowadays? I'm not talking re-releases or definitive editions here, I'm talking about HD, from-the-ground-up remakes of beloved older games. I guess part of it stems from the fact that even though they definitely take more time and effort than straight-up ports, people will always bitch about having a schedule filled with old content compared to new content. And also, since they take a lot more time and effort than ports, a lot of the time companies would much rather just do that, or if it's an old enough game, just slap it into widescreen or something.
Oh, but it's so fun when companies don't make new things and instead remake all of their old junk. So instead of contributing to society, I've decided I'm gonna take a look at most, if not all of the games that I want companies to look at and say, HD it.
Yeah, a lot of my picks are gonna be super fucking obvious, but Chibi Robo needs a remake. Really, any of the games in the series that won't make me infertile could warrant a remake. Particularly Clean Sweep, the second DS entry that was exclusive to Japan, but I'm a simple man and the original Chibi Robo on the GameCube is my choice for the remake treatment. I've talked about how much I enjoy this game more than I've talked about how I enjoy Oxygen, but something about the setting of this game is so damn endearing. The decor of the house captures the era it was released in remarkably well, and I think seeing that through a crisp 1080p resolution would be a treat. There's just so much to love about this game, and having it readily available in a modern form factor would make me incredibly happy. Because let's be honest, as much as I effing adore this game, it's pretty hard for me to urge you to go out and buy yourself a copy when this game currently costs... Having this game on the Switch could truly give Chibi Robo a shot at redemption, and I think that if it was more readily available, people might actually be willing to give it a go. Plus, I want to play this game on the go. That would be way past nifty. Oops, my name is Rawk, and I said what? Yes, just like Chibi Robo, I will admit, I am predictable. But Pokepog Wii is my favourite Pokemon game and one of my absolute favourite games of all time, and there are 1,000,001 reasons to slap this thing onto the Switch. I don't care what anybody says, this game was beautiful for a Wii game, and would look just so lovely in HD. The game would greatly benefit from being able to be controlled with anything but a D-pad. Full analog control would massively enhance this game, and toning down the motion control dependency would also be nice. And just like Chibi Robo, being able to play this game on the go would be a dream come true. I think that's true for pretty much every game I'm about to talk about. And on top of that, I'm not so sure that a sequel would work super well for this game. I know it already got a sequel in the form of Pokepog 2 Wonders Beyond, but I honestly think I'd prefer a remake of the original over a Pokepog 3. I know, wild, right? Alright, I promise. This is the last of the predictable picks, but Mario Sports Mix is too damn good for this not to happen. I feel like given the track record of modern Mario Sports games, another Mario Sports Mix style game isn't the most likely thing in the world, and even if it did happen, I have my doubts that it would be good. I will wholeheartedly stand by the opinion that this game is unbelievably solid, and each of the sports are a blast in their own right. This one isn't even really about the visuals. I mean, this game looked fine on the Wii. It wasn't particularly mind-blowing, but it looked nice enough. For this one, I just like to say available in a modern form factor. It would feel so good to have a more convenient way to play this game, and I feel like it may even lend itself to a standard controller more so than the Wii Remote. I have a bit of a confession to make. The 16-bit era of pixel art might be my favourite 2D art style of all time. Alright, that might not be a super controversial opinion, but even still, I've come to absolutely adore this graphical style, and Donkey Kong Country is at the top of the class in this regard. Now, when I say I want an HD remake of Donkey Kong Country, I don't mean I want them to slap some 3D models over the original and call it a day. No. In fact, that's actually something that I think would ruin a remake. Obviously, this game is fantastic in its own right, but I strongly believe that a large amount of its charm comes from the presentation. So to take that and simply put it in 3D would definitely remove a lot of what makes this game unique. Of course, there's something to be said that using 3D models would be a full realization of what Donkey Kong Country was supposed to be, considering the original sprite work was made by using 3D models and taking pictures of them. But I still would rather see the pixel art remain. So what do I want? Well, take a look at Sonic Mania compared to the 16-bit Sonic games and apply that same evolution to Donkey Kong Country. That could be pretty nifty. Now, with me having embarrassing feelings for the SNES pixel art, I don't think Donkey Kong Country is the only game from this era that I'd like to see remade in HD, and with that in mind, Super Metroid is not only a phenomenal game that arguably defined the Metroidvania genre as a whole, but a remake is also the next logical step for the 2D Metroid series. Think about it. The original Metroid was remade on the GBA as the superb Metroid Zero Mission. Metroid 2 was remade on the 3DS as the fantastic Metroid Samus Returns, and the next game chronologically is Super Metroid. So this feels like a fairly obvious candidate. But I don't care, I still want to see this. Although just like with Donkey Kong Country, we need to see a modern day adaptation of this pixel art that isn't just 3D for the sake of being 3D. I'm really not trying to knock 3D visuals here, as they obviously have merit, and for some remakes, they work really well. Metroid Samus Returns adapts the original sprite work into 3D and looks absolutely stunning. And while I definitely think this could be pulled off for Super Metroid, I'd still much rather see a modern day adaptation of the original sprite work, please and thank you. I also think that the sound design should definitely remain the same, which is something I didn't really mention with Donkey Kong Country. But for both of these games, the original SNES soundtracks need to remain. They just need to. Let's round off the modern day Pixel trilogy with a Zelda game, and honestly, I'm not too picky. The two I'm thinking here are A Link to the Past and the Minish Cap. The graphics of both of these games are drop dead gorgeous, and just like with DK and Metroid, seeing what could be done with these games on modern hardware could be amazing. I could really go either way with this one. Link to the Past was obviously the originator of this style, and the Minish Cap kinda just evolved it as much as you could reasonably expect a GBA game to. However, the Minish Cap hasn't been re-released nearly as much as A Link to the Past. And seeing as this game was developed by Capcom, it could actually be more interesting to see a new direction for this game compared to A Link to the Past. After Miitopia proved that Nintendo wasn't completely opposed to re-releasing 3DS games on the Switch, my mind immediately jumped to Tomodachi Life, and then right afterwards it jumped to New Leaf, so let's talk about that one instead. The more time goes on, the more I kind of realize, my god, I adore New Leaf an unhealthy amount. With one Super Mario Odyssey riddled exception, I think this game genuinely has a solid chance of being my favorite game of all time. So to see this masterpiece leave the 3DS could be absolutely amazing. I will admit that the form factor of the 3DS adds a lot of charm to this game, but I think seeing its style adapted to the same graphical standard as New Horizons could be jaw-dropping. But for God's sake, leave the soundtrack alone. New Horizons soundtrack isn't bad in my opinion, but it doesn't even begin to compare to New Leaf's. I also just think that being able to play this game on the big screen would be an absolute treat. I don't know if it would replace the original for me necessarily, but it would be a damn nice option. More people need to experience New Leaf, and if any other Nintendo 3DS game were to make its way to the Switch, I couldn't think of any game more deserving than this one. That's right, not even Angry Birds Trilogy.
Are you sure about that one?
Alright, hear me out. The original GameCube Pikmin, graphically enhanced to be on par with Pikmin 3. Nintendo, look me in the eyes and tell me you wouldn't want to invest in that.
Try me.
To me, one of the greatest appeals of Pikmin is the world. PNF 404 is such a beautiful planet, with such an intriguing natural landscape that's an absolute joy to explore. I think if we were able to see areas like the Garden of Hope with the higher fidelity rendering that the Switch allows for, that could breathe new life into this game. Just imagine how gobsmackingly serene and tranquil the locales of Pikmin 1 could look through a modern lens. Good God. I already think that Pikmin is a downright pretty game, but I drool at the thought of seeing it with a crispy 1080p resolution and updated visuals. I also think it would be interesting to see the original game with the same control scheme as Pikmin 3 Deluxe, purely because I don't think a game has ever felt as blissful to play as Pikmin 3 Deluxe. Seeing the simpler, arguably more streamlined gameplay of the original with this control scheme would be really interesting. Now, of course, you may be wondering, well, doesn't all of this kind of apply to Pikmin 2 as well? But this is Nintendo we're talking about. They would absolutely do separate re-releases of these games, or just give us the first one without the second one just to be weird. I'd absolutely love to see Pikmin 2 alongside the original, but I didn't include it because oops, I haven't played it. My bucket list will never be complete.
Because the only time I have available to play this game is after my funeral.
Look man, I would so rather a new F-Zero game, but Nintendo seems to be allergic to whatever chemical is formed when these two concepts react, so I'll take what I can get. F-Zero GX is far and away the best game in the series. The high-speed action is cranked to the absolute max and is a total blast. And this game was also the most ambitious in the series with its story mode. For better or for worse. Yeah, an HD remake of GX would definitely allow for the kinks to be worked out of the story mode of this game, mostly in the form of the cutscenes. The animation is subpar, the lip syncing isn't even close most of the time, and the dialogue and delivery is just a glorious disaster. This truly is the Donkey Kong Country TV show of the F-Zero universe. An HD remake has the chance to enhance the already fantastic elements of this game, whilst also bringing those that fell by the wayside up to speed, to provide an even more solid experience than the original. And then Nintendo will never touch the series again. The obvious picks make a comeback in the form of the most 3D 2D Mario series out there. Oh, Paper Mario, the series that Nintendo just refuses to give any re-releases. Given the shaky track record of this series since arguably 2008, Nintendo have never seemed too interested in providing us ways of playing the older and better games in this series. They seem to have this weird insecurity where they think if the old games in the series are more readily available, then we won't want to play the newer ones. And they'd be right. So needless to say, when the original Paper Mario made it onto Nintendo Switch Online, I was floored. But a port to NSO simply isn't gonna cut it for me. We need a full HD remake of one of these earlier Paper Mario games. Obviously, I'd much rather a Paper Mario All-Stars collection with 64, Thousand Year Door and Super Paper Mario all in one, but if I had to pick one of these games to get the HD treatment, it has to be the Thousand Year Door. The Paper Mario gameplay formula hit its peak here, the art style was perfected, and while the story definitely doesn't reach the heights of Super Paper Mario, I think in terms of showing off the appeal of the series, it'll more than suffice. And who knows, maybe if Nintendo listened to the feedback from the Origami King compared to T2ID HD, they might actually understand what they're doing wrong with the series, and try to make a true return to form. Like, that's ever gonna happen. I know Banjo-Kazooie has already been HD'd on my worst fucking nightmare, but that was just taking the N64 assets and sprucing them up a bit. I think it's fair to want a complete, from-the-ground-up remake of this game. There isn't even a whole lot to say. The concept of a Banjo-Kazooie remake kinda sells itself. Hell, if you really wanted to, take a page out of Conker Live and Reloaded's book and change some things later on to kinda poke fun at the concept of being a remake. That could be fun. Or you know, don't do that, I don't care. Just remake Banjo-Kazooie and put it on the Switch, please and thank you.
Alright, that does it for the HD remakes that I had a lot to say about, but that definitely doesn't mean I'm done begging Nintendo for all of their old shit. So let's quickly dabble in a few more key titles that I didn't really have as much to say about.
I know everybody seems to want a new Diddy Kong Racing, and I definitely wouldn't be opposed to that, but I honestly think I'd rather see a remake of the original game, and with Nintendo and Microsoft being all buddy-buddy with each other, it's probably feasible to see rare characters like Banjo and Conker see a return in this game, after being omitted from the DS remake. I have such a soft spot for the Game Boy Mario Land games, and I'd love to see them brought into the modern day, but not with the godforsaken new Super Mario Bros. Art style. It's fine, it works, it doesn't look awful by any means, but I, along with countless others, I'm sick to death of seeing it. I think seeing Mario Land 1 and 2 remakes in the art style of Yuichi Katabe's Mario artwork would be beyond nifty, and fit the wacky nature of these two games perfectly. Yoshi's Island is in a similar boat to Mario Land, a game that deserves an HD remake, but needs to break away from the modern entries in the series. Enough with the real-world materials shtick for Yoshi. It was sorta cute in Woolly World, impressive in Crafted World, and utterly repulsive in New Island. So I think we should see a new style, or rather, an evolution of the old style. Take the storybook drawn in crayon look of the original and adapt that into a modern form. I think that could look absolutely stunning. Luigi's Mansion, the game made to showcase the graphical capabilities of the GameCube. Well, why not use it as an excuse to show off the graphical capabilities of the Switch and not the 3DS, because I've had more powerful bowls of cereal than that thing. Look, the 3DS version is cool, but it personally didn't do too much for me. Slap this puppy on the Switch with the same level of detail and sheer beauty of Luigi's Mansion 3 and we'll be golden. But definitely keep the atmosphere and style of the original. Still allow it to be its own thing so we can truly appreciate the difference between 1 and 3 and not 2 because that's on the 3DS.
Bring that over too, you cowards!
Dodging the Giant has some pretty fun mechanics, but can also feel a little bit dated and frustrating. Improve the visuals enough to make me audibly gleeful every time I look at the screen, and tinker around with the game to make it a lot more appealing in the modern video game landscape. The world needs more jelly, baby man.
Remember when I said I was done with games that I had a lot to say about? Well, I'm going to hell.
Much like with Paper Mario, any and all of the games in this series beg for remakes, but I'm personally gonna swing for Earthbound here because it's probably the most iconic. Earthbound Beginnings hasn't really aged all too well considering it's an NES RPG, and I still don't know what Mother 3 tastes like. Christ, right? Earthbound is a game that I desperately want to play, and I think what would be really cool for a remake is seeing the claymation style used in a lot of the series' promotional materials being used as the primary style for the game itself. That would look sick, to put it lightly. And I also think it would be really fitting for the more lighthearted tone of most of this game. It just has so much potential as a remake, and much like a lot of these games I've mentioned, it might make Nintendo finally realize,
oh, shit! We should probably stop milking the same 3 series for a little while.
so you know what? While we're at it, why not remake Super Mario RPG? Or hell, maybe even Star Tropics, and you might as well remake Custom Robo while you're at it. And if you feel like it, why not pop Mario and Luigi Partners in Time on the list too? And who knows, maybe you might even want to remake Starfy, or Sin and Punishment, or Eternal Darkness, or Jet Force Gemini, or fucking guys, do it Nintendo, I dare you!
Alright, obviously I could ramble on for centuries about games that I want HD-ified, but I think I'm gonna end this off with one final request. It's pretty out there, and honestly, I don't think it's something that Nintendo would ever do, but damn it, that isn't gonna stop me from wishing for it. My final request is Super Mario Odyssey HD. Having this game on the Switch in HD, that would be the dream.